What is up? Jesus.
Hey.
Can you tone it down with the handsomeness a little bit? Come
Sorry,
on.
sorry, man.
It's come on. You already got the long hair and the chisel, then you get to look young forever. You're making us look bad, man. Come on.
Yeah, ancient spirits of evil.
Yes, devouring souls. Would you agree, Sin? That's how he maintains his good looks?
Definitely.
Yeah.
That devouring soul and monster energy drinks.
Yes.
That's a good way to do it.
Daniel, how does the day find you, my friend?
Sounds good, thank you. I was just on my Discord chat, so I'm sorry I'm a little bit late, but I've been, just having some fun discussions with fans about very, very specific Soul Reaver questions, like super specific.
Yep.
I switched jobs, so I'm in the middle of starting at Riot now, leaving PlayStation, starting a career there. So
I will adjust all descriptions which say like principal artist, PlayStation.
Oh yeah,
Riot. Yeah.
Very recent, just like June 1st is when I started, so it's very recent.
Well, I want to say this. Welcome to the show, obviously, but even better and more important, we collectively, as all the listeners right now, you're setting out on this new path, and we like literally collectively send you good vibes and energy for that. Like, that's a wonderful new horizon.
It's working. It's definitely working. So thank you.
Excellent. Speaking of riots, because I'm Daggy Sin, are you ready? I'm about to dag it up with a pun. We're gonna have a riot on this show, a riot of fun. Oh dear. Oh please, Sin. Sin, help me. The daggy puns too much. We do have the artist that I sent you some of her work, Laura, joining us. The reason why is
what's going on here?
What she's doing is creating this amazing, expansive. It's the Soul Healer, so there's Soul Reaver and Soul Healer. So she does like festive posts and all that good stuff. So you've caught us up on your day. That's fantastic. An amazing impromptu announcement of this new Riot journey. That is rad. But now, Sin, if you don't mind, I need to kind of just take Daniel aside and just collectively, again, over the years, there's just been this accrual of gratitude that I am now just going to be a pure vessel for. You have heard likely every possible permutation of like, you changed my life, your art design influenced me, your kind of character design influenced, all of these sort of things. But if I can maybe find a new angle among that, I just want to say, Daniel, thank you for being who you are and doing what you do. Seriously. Soul Reaver 2 in particular, for me, it was that long ago. Geez, 20 years ago, that it helped. It helped me. I was transitioning from English, from Italian. That language that Amy Hennig wrote, like it was just this primer on the English language. But then this marriage of intellectualism and dark aesthetics and philosophy and symbolism, like it is a primer for how to be for how to set on the path of becoming like a well-rounded like connoisseur of art and entertainment, not just a consumer. Like there's so much in the themes, and I love that you're carrying it forward with Sanctuary of Cain, the themes of choice, the themes of siblinghood, brotherhood, and it's just so rich. And collectively we love you very much, and we are so honored to have you on the show, buddy.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Sorry, we did do a little bit of a dance to get here, but I'm really happy that we get a chance to actually talk, and I'm happy to speak about these things. I mean, one thing that I absolutely love about the series is that we always assumed intelligence on the player. So, introducing like complex concepts like good and evil as a point of view, or even things like the Gnostic hero's journey. All of these things we assumed that the player would just figure it out if they didn't know it already. The dialogue was meant to be another level, because we wanted people to enjoy it on a higher level. Games, a lot of times games have like this weird dialogue of, back then at least, of like being very simplistic, and we thought we could elevate that. We thought there are people who played games, who made time for games, who are also the kind of people who would read lots of novels, or were the goth culture, or understood it, at least understood where BDSM like actually laid in the world of things, and just how these design concepts could be used in fun ways and interesting ways that hadn't been approached before in games.
That didn't lose their approachability, you're right. It sort of broadened and deepened the art form, absolutely. God of War 2018, Dark Souls, all of these kind of like these heavy subjects, beautiful narration, beautiful performance capture, voice performances and writing, all built on the shoulders of Soul Reaver. That's not smoke blowing you. It is chronological. You can go all the way back. And that was pioneering, man. And so not just all around and now confirmed 5 minutes in, you're an absolutely rad guy in person. So that's great. Pioneering artist. So Sin, I'm going to throw it now to you. If you had any riffs for Daniel as we open up the discussion in terms of your kinship with Legacy of Kain and just having Daniel here today.
It's really neat. I think Legacy of Kain was the first game I played where I actually was interested in the lore and the story of the world. So it was sure something. I stumbled upon Legacy of Kain actually. It was like end 90s, around the time it came out. And it was just this random demo. I don't even know where I found it. And I played it and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in love with this game. Mom, let's go to the mall. Gotta buy me a game.
That's right.
And I just played it for the longest time. And then I played, some other entries in the series. And then it just all came amazingly with Defiance many years later. And
that's right. I'm going to let Laura in just quickly so she gets to hear your amazing story as well. And then we can do a circle around. And the love is only increasing. Hello, Laura. Welcome. How are you?
Hello, guys.
Oh, excellent. Your audio sounds perfect.
You can hear me.
I can hear you perfectly. Sin was just, we're doing a roundtable. Sin was just covering off her kinship with Legacy of Kain, and then just having Daniel here and what what kind of vibes come from that. So didn't want to interrupt you, Sin, and then we'll circle around to Laura.
Oh, it's okay. It's just, it's one of the first games that I was interested in the story of, and I thought the art was amazing, the art style and all that stuff.
Amazing, wonderful. Laura, first of all, how's your day been?
Yeah. So I want to waiting my partner in this project.
Oh,
Sabrina.
Okay.
And
to join you.
She's a little too late, but I can speak later if you want.
No, hey guys, we're all good with Laura. Like you totally English-wise all sorted. It's totally fine. I'll throw you things and then maybe you can riff with things easy. We've done it before on the show. But needless to say, with whatever words you want to express, just having Daniel here, who a lot of the art that you create with soul healing, like this guy right here, I'm pointing to him on the Brady Bunch. Like he created
the boy on the right.
On the right. So if you wanted to say anything right off the bat to Daniel, go for it.
Oh. Me?
Yeah,
no.
He's right here.
No.
Laura and I have talked before, though, so she's always thanked me every time we've interacted.
Oh,
and so she's consulted me about some of the things she's been drawing as well. And I love your drawings, Laura; they're fantastic. Love your artwork. And so it's time for me to be appreciative, actually, to all the fans out there who loved it, because without fans we wouldn't be anywhere. It was a fact that we took a chance to try and put something out there that had never been done before. Because if you remember the video game landscape in the 90s, it was Duke Nukem, it was Doom, it was a lot of Tomb Raider. There's a lot of different games that really didn't focus on story or didn't focus on
surface level. Yeah,
and it wasn't like a deeper gothic element with the art intrinsically tied to the story. It was the Wild West back then. We could do whatever we wanted to. I was fortunate enough to be able to bring my sensibilities back then for all things that I loved in high school. I loved anime. I loved stuff that today we take for granted, but wasn't really big back then. Even the kind of dark, twisted kind of artwork that we were able to put on there, it was really something that we were able to do. Anything sophisticated on the PlayStation 1, forget it. There wasn't, only Resident Evil was the most sophisticated thing you could see, or Final Fantasy. But we want to do something Western with some Eastern influences, but generally speaking, it's Western. And taking into account the literary, the architecture, being sophisticated with it, and having fans actually resonate with those things and appreciate it was like the biggest thing for us, because we didn't know. You talk to any game producer back there, any marketing guy, and they'll tell you, you just got to get them in there, get them in the seats, sell some games, make some fun stuff, and blow stuff up. And you're like, how about something more sophisticated? How about trying to fight for something like you believe in, or realizing that good and evil are relative, or fighting for somebody's soul, or being changed, from something that's beautiful to something that's damned, or taking themes like, the Gnostic hero's journey, or something like the Paradise Lost by Milton, and incorporating that into a game, you know, and what that does, and not beating somebody over the head with it, but just kind of sliding it in there and seeing if they get it. Having the sophistication of fans like you guys blew me away because of the appreciation that you had for it, the understanding you had, and that we assumed intelligence and taste on the part of the fans, but to have them respond so strongly and reinforce that was, you know, it was a love letter back to the developer, honestly.
Honestly, I just want to like right here, folks, so many gems there about just how enriching Legacy of Kain is, not just intellectually, but in that sense of delving into deeper themes where it is the safe bet to go with the sort of poppier surface level, you know, run-of-the-mill safe bet kind of stuff. And with Legacy of Kain, especially what you said about Milton and what you said about ambiguity and the gray area, which again, so much of the media we love now is steeped in that, like the Game of Thrones, for example. Again, that idea of opening that door that others strode through, right? And couldn't have phrased it more eloquently and more multifacetedly. Yeah, dude, absolutely. And I see that it mattered to you on every level as a human being, as a creative, not just the aesthetics. Like, again, everything feeds into aesthetics. It's never just from a void. And bringing your sensibilities like that, I feel I want listeners actually tuning in, like, to come away from this chat recognizing that that it was a fight back then. I just want to signal boost you for that. And when you play Soul Reaver 2 this November to celebrate 20 years, and when you throw your hands up at the soon-to-be announced Legacy of Kain reboot, okay, easy.
Whoa,
maybe
hey.
we'll see.
Hey, no, whoa.
Oi. When that happens, because it is going to be a win, and Daniel's going to be the lead artist, absolutely. Just manifesting that for you, okay?
Let's manifest.
You manifested. That's right. Yes. You need to recognize that. It is, you know, again, we just had Elden Ring. I want to really contextualize. We just had Elden Ring. We just had the Avatar game announced. There is some certain magic in the air of things that you don't necessarily think were about to happen just happened, you know? And so I want that triple whammy to be something over at the Square, who knows, a tease or something. And again, Daniel would be being completely coy if he knew anything. But needless to say, there's a theme within Legacy of Kain, Daniel, of eternity and inevitability, you know, which is just these timeless themes you can dive into, use as a platform for wider, deeper, more mature literary discussion. I suppose my opening question, and then we can circle around to Sin, and then some of these questions we have, would be, when you saw people absorbing and taking Legacy of Kain into their hearts, not just aesthetically, but in terms of like, hey, this went on to inform this part of who I am, etc. Do you have any particular thoughts or maybe moments where you realized that it had gone a layer deeper than you thought that it would, with maybe encountering someone who went into, like, again, Gnostic studies or something based off of something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Even to this day, I get people who said that they played Soul Reaver when they were 6, and I'm like, 6? That's way too young. But they started them on a journey of, you know, creation. People in the game industry today who I talked to said love the game, got into the game industry because of that, and realized it could be something more than, you know, just a passive or a surface level experience. You know, people who got into literary, you know, pursuits. People who became writers or became creatives because of that. I was just telling the podcast, the Discord group, that there was I just got recently contacted by someone who paints backgrounds for Castlevania, the Netflix series, and he loved the game, you know, and he got into it, and it was awesome to just talk to these people on a creative level about that, and to have people figure stuff out about the game that we'd thrown in there that was like subtle, like real subtle things, like messages, and people figuring that out, like even something as subtle as Malik's tomb has a scratch through it, and Kain did that, but you know, I just put a scratch through it. Kain did it, sure. But people would come up to me and talk to me about that. It's like, hey, who put that in there? You know, was that? I'm like, you noticed that?
Well, this is where I think I need to bring Sin in, because, as you know, Sin and her partner in crime, Sophie, are master in-depth detail analysts of the Soul series, which, again, off of the shoulders of Soul Reaver. They even share the soul right there in the title. when you're going through, for example, Nosgothic Realm, there are entire swaths, dozens like of communities dedicated entirely to passing through, and that is a direct symptom of pure appreciation. Number one. Number two, I've been doing this kind of art entertainment with the focus on interactive art analysis for 2014. And I have explored every angle of what I believe to be the most empathy engaging art form. I call it that because with a Blu-ray, you can just put it on and it'll just play on its own. Or music, an album, it'll play itself. But the interactive medium requires your direct empathetic participation. And when I realized, I hadn't thought of this, is you with the level of respect for the viewers and the players' intelligence, you again assumed that intelligence and you essentially said, look, no, I want you guys to be active in this story, not just as this mindless playing kind of pastime, recreation, distraction, competition thing. And I just realized there's a sync up with active participation, like the realm of which is, we've seen this from God of War, which is a perfect transition actually, because we're seeing so much of this celebration of a narrative that explores this theme of parenthood, and that's just Kain and Raziel right there with the father-son kind of thing. And when you marry the interactive medium, activating people's minds with subject matter that you like Last of Us Part 2, you can't go through that unchanged, because you are unlocking new intellectual realms, that you embody that to the paradigm of that, man. That's perfect. I've never thought of that before. The games are meant to be intelligent and engaging and poetic and tragic and Shakespearean. They really are, thanks to you.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, they can be like any entertainment medium. They can span the entire spectrum of those things. But when we get to that point where we can do what I consider art in this, and create an artful experience that makes you think more deeply about something and challenge your perceptions about things. And I think we're doing good work on that. I think that's what games are starting to do now, as a more intelligent medium, as being forced to participate and actually become active in it forces you to see things from a different lens, which you normally wouldn't be able to do. And one of the great themes about Soul Reaver was that good and evil is simply a point of view. It's not a constant. And the thing about Raziel is he's the most zealous for whatever point of view he has. When he's a human, he's the most zealous vampire killer ever. When he's a vampire, he's the most zealous vampire ever. And when he becomes the Wraith, he's the most zealous, justice-seeking Wraith he can be. But he changes points of view so many times because he realizes
his characterizing quality, the zealousness.
Yeah, it's part of the journey that any intelligent person would take if they were to realize, how things change over time, how things, aren't the way you think they are. And you can't just take the propaganda of something, whether it's a mural or an advertisement or something that's given to you,
or a conniving Time Lord's words.
Yeah.
Can't take those literally.
No, because seriously, Mobius has the ability to see so many different things in the time stream, but he chose to see things a certain way, and that was his choice.
I'm getting all choked up, literally. Editing. This will be easy to edit. I literally got choked up thinking about this. Sin, while I die over here, if you could take over. But the last thing I'll say is I've never met, and this isn't smoke blowing to you, Daniel, a more actively engaged concept artist, an artist in that realm of the visual development, the lead artist, who is so, I mean, I want you consulting on whatever Legacy of Kain, you are so in the themes, you are, that Cabuco is that's a signature. Everything you've mentioned, you're speaking from that pure, that's who you are. Again, Kojima, he puts himself in his games, and same with Miyazaki. And everything you're saying, I'm actually it's, that concept in literary, analysis and reference, it's called the primary source. It's I'm speaking to if you dig through the pixels of Soul Reaver 1 and 2, you'll just find that the Cabucality, the Cabucism. I can dig it, man. I can dig it. Well, now my throat's back. But Sin, did you have any other riffs for Daniel? Just as they come, I'm very stream of consciousness, as I mentioned. It's it's just we're just chatting.
Well, I actually do have a couple of lore questions.
Okay.
About Soul Reaver. When in the beginning of Soul Reaver, when Kain damages or rips out Raziel's wings and then orders him to be thrown in the abyss. At this point, does Kain know everything that's about to happen? He's setting it into motion, or is this like a little less concrete in Kain's mind at that point?
Okay, I'm going to kind of lay this out for you guys, because if you remember one of Kain's lines, he says, "As a man, I could never fathom." I'm paraphrasing. I could never fathom the depths of everything that was to be understood. So imagine this: you're immortal. You're a vampire. You have a kingdom you can build. You find a time streaming device that shows you futures, but you're not the guardian of time, not the pillar of time. So you can't use this machine the way they would to understand different time streams. You have to look at them one at a time, right? In this time, much like Milton had written for Paradise Lost, when Adam saw the destruction of everything at Noah's flood, that's as far as he was able to see. He saw all the way up to Noah. His entire line was destroyed with Noah's flood. There's a despair there, right? Kain looks into the future. He sees despair. He sees all of his creations devolving into beasts. Every single timeline he checks, beast, destruction, falling apart, everything falling apart in his hands, no matter what he builds, no matter how many times he builds it. Over hundreds of years, he looks through these, and he gets to one point where he sees Raziel with his wings. He sees one point where he tears off those wings and casts them in the abyss, and then they're static. That is something he latches onto. Wait, something changed here. It has something to do with when the two Reavers cross. That's true. But something else happens. Static. Now I see Raziel in the past. Static. Now I see Raziel with Janos, or something like that. He sees possibilities, and suddenly he realizes the only chance he has to escape his fate is to set Raziel on a very, set path, very destructive path, right? It tears him apart because Raziel is his favorite. But he realizes that's what he has to do. So when he sees Raziel's wings, Raziel interprets that as jealousy. And I think people who only look at the beginning part of the game say, "Oh, Kain was jealous. Why wasn't he jealous of Rahab having gills? Why wasn't he jealous of the other vampires having their abilities?" What Raziel's wings were was a signal. This was the time to do this action. Rip off his wings and cast him in, and then wait for Raziel to come. And when he came again, you remember when Kain hit him with the Reaver and it exploded, there was a grim look of satisfaction on Kain's face, because he knew he'd started a series of events in action that would culminate in his ability to relieve himself of the curse that he was under. He's under a curse. Remember that. Ever since the beginning, when Nipraptor's curse hit everybody, including Kain in the womb, all the Guardians are tainted. So everything Kain built is tainted. And again, just to reinforce it, he saw just destruction for his entire lineage, no matter what. And he rebels against that. So he looks for that coin to land on its edge. So when Raziel unfurls those wings, that's his signal to begin this path.
When you said this thing about the static and then, materializing into these glimpses and all tied into his lieutenant, it almost makes it, again, obviously way more layered than just jealousy. It's the sense that these creatures have been living for thousands of years, and I can't remember where. I think it was maybe something with Neil Gaiman. It's like no, it was in the lore book for the God of War. Atreus asks his father something about time passing as an immortal, and he said, wait till you're older and you'll start to understand that time just goes like that, and yet millennia has passed and you still feel it. It's this sort of vampiric duality. We just watched Interview with the Vampire yesterday, like in subconscious preparation, I think. Do you have something there?
Yeah, so one thing that we talked about even in my Discord was that in Anne Rice's little movie, there's a line that few people actually have the endurance for immortality.
That's the one I was just about to literally riff about. That's Armand.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And so I consider them sort of siblings, really, the Anne Rice and Amy Hennig. There's even the, female author name starts with an A, and I came up on both for sure. But when you said that, it makes them simultaneously more pitiable, like in that Gollum sense of like you pity this Kain for he's a trusted lieutenant. In fact, the prequel comic, which I just reread, he has Raziel, like he has no concept at all that his the seer prophesizes that his master will turn against him, and he cuts her head off and says, no, no way my father would do that. And he shows him his wings in full pride and in full trust that this won't come true. And yet that's when Kain reverts into that frightened child, into that like something's happening and I need to engage with it. And it makes him more callous because it's even less than jealousy. It's almost like the antenna starts working, and so then you throw everything aside and you sort of wait. And that he saw Raziel as simultaneously like so expendable yet so significant, you know, is I mean, let's just say I learned the word paradox from Legacy of Kain. I did.
That's a good one. It's a good one. Like, yeah, if you look at it through that lens, the look on Kain's face means something different than jealousy. It means, oh, the time has come for this to happen.
That's right.
And it's almost sad, but he realizes it has to happen. And so but Kain has never wanted to shy away from doing whatever needs to happen in order for him to take an advantage, right? So if he needs to cut off his right arm if he had to, so to speak, he'll do it. So do it fearless.
Extremely good questions, and thank you, Daniel. Very eloquent answer as well. I will get into some of these because it has just been a flood. Now we just crossed 70 upvotes there, and I'm going to filter by, I suppose, top. The ones that people have been like, oh yeah, ask him that, so here we go. Ask him what fans should plausibly hope for regarding Legacy of Kain's future. Does he know if Square Enix is still interested? Are studios and publishers outside of Square Enix interested? What does he personally believe is likely to happen? That's from Limage_Das. So I like that. Go.
It's one of those things where I don't have any insight into what IDOS or Crystal's doing. I still have friends over there, but honestly, I didn't even know Dead Sun was being made when it was. I think it has the franchise itself still has incredible wings. It has the ability to, just like God of War did, come back from the dead and do whatever it needs to do. But it has to have the right writer. It has to have the right people with the insight in on. And if they're not talking to Amy or me about it, then they'd have to reboot it. And if they did, they'd have to at least understand the thematic origins of everything. And so without the right people at the helm, you're going to get, for lack of a better term, a stillborn sort of project where they don't get it. And so I could definitely see it happening. I could also see it definitely like happening the wrong way. So it's a matter of somebody at the top kind of taking the time to understand it. And it's hard because it's a box of wires, basically. If you were to hand somebody the story and say, here's a story, it's a box of wires. And I've been keeping the lore alive because I want to at least somebody be able to read into it and have that. And I actually wanted to build like just a primer almost for some people to read it and understand it. And just, getting the time to do that with my other career and stuff like that is difficult.
But I might jump in here to say, speaking of what Daniel is building, just Sanctuary of Kain, folks. I'm a patron. This man is building this wonderful continuation. Again, that word sanctuary, very deliberate there with the nomenclature. I appreciate that. It's wonderful. If you were to join any Patreon, this isn't, just smoke blowing to you, man. It is. I personally do something with my Patreon. It is an art collective. It is a collective of like-minded people. There's no sense of like, you're following me. It's like, no, we're a community. And it's a good vibe. It does have that feeling of being in like even with the aesthetics, because you are an artist, so it feels like you're in a kind of temple of like legacy of Kainian kind of solace and like, and like, so that's for me, the mood of a Patreon is everything. Is like I go there for the feeling of being there, and just that word sanctuary, man. So had to kind of just jump into like everyone right now. It's like just join, like all 40,000 people listening on the consolidated channel, go and join right now. Okay, so please do it.
Well, part of my hope is that if we can at least create a loud enough voice that IDOS will hear that and basically use that to come back with hey, this thing still has legs, it needs to be done properly. Call me IDOS.
1,000%.
I'm gonna consult with you guys and let you guys know what's going on, because the thing is that it needs to be done properly. I'm not saying that you couldn't reboot it. You probably could, but if you're going to reboot it, you have to understand the themes that made it strong and why it's good. But I think you don't have to reboot it. I think like God of War, you can just continue it in a different way, and just try different things with it and try. There's so many characters. There are still lands that haven't been explored. There are themes that haven't been explored yet. So it seems like there's a lot you can still do with it. I have ideas as well, even like how to explore the Hilden realm if we need to do that, or how, all those other things. But what I was hoping to do with the Patreon is at least to create some sounding board for people to be able to at least say, hey, this is still a really cool place. We can still celebrate as fans. We can maybe build some stuff in 3D in partnership with other people and make some cool stuff.
Well, I want to say, in terms of the presaging of the inundation of patrons who are coming off of this episode, I'm manifesting it for you, that I honestly have just been getting pings all day, just questions. I've had other guests, Daniel, it's almost, we're up to 300 episodes now. I've never had this uninterrupted pinging of questions, and I may even have to, because there's so many, I'll have to just email them to you, a lot of them.
Sure, yeah.
And you can jump on the Reddit and maybe reply if you have a Reddit there, man.
Yeah, and like I said, I have a Discord channel as well on my Patreon, so if you guys want to get on there and discuss it, we're just happy to discuss themes, possibilities, clarification of details, things that I remember from 20 years ago, stuff like that.
Creating that chronicle, and that's what we're doing with the
I have an idea.
Yeah, go for it, Sin.
I have an idea, Daniel. You know how on Patreon you can create different goals? Like if we reach whatever, $10, we'll add this in the game. $100, we'll add this in the game. I think you need a goal that says, if we reach this much, I promise there will be no box puzzles in this game.
Yes. Box puzzles. I think a little bit of box puzzles.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, PlayStation 1, we didn't have that many different ways to do puzzles. So
I get it.
No puzzles with Ziphonym, please.
Ziphonym.
Fuck!
Listen, Daniel. Listen, I can respect my two lovely co-hosts here, but you pull those levers, man. You push those blocks. I believe in you.
Game design has advanced so much nowadays.
I know,
think
it's
we have so many cool puzzles and just different ways of doing things. My mind is light with creative ways we can use things. But one thing that we had done that no one had ever done, and people really haven't done since, is Spectrum. So, that as a puzzle element is amazing, and I think that we should definitely keep going into. I want to jump. I want to try it out when I get time. Jump into Unreal and try it out. And see if I can make that happen. So, but no box puzzles. Sure, why go back to old puzzles?
There has to be at least one, Sin, for the diehard. I've got a box puzzle tattoo on my back. Okay, no, I'm kidding. I don't have that. But I do.
I apologize for some of the difficult puzzles.
I will mention though, is that when I was a youth, it was a mixture of, I would say, about 80% you guys with your clan symbols, and then you have a bit of the Raymond Swanland there from Oddworld. It all went on to inform.
Oh wow, Laura, really?
Yeah. Okay.
Got it.
There she has.
Wow, she has yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, that was another thing we were really not expecting, is when we were designing the symbols, we just wanted to make something really cool, and thought, it'd be really cool if people got tattoos of these someday, but we want to make it that quality. And just because we understood that, if someone did want to get it, we'd be so blown away, it'd be amazing. But people actually did it. And I get emails of people all the time who have their tattoos, and they're gorgeous. Yeah, they're gorgeous.
Little tiny shards of just that Raziel kind of shape and everything. And
it was one of those things where if we hadn't put the thought into it, then I don't think it would have resonated as much. And so it's one of the things where we ahead of time assumed that the Vans were going to like it. I just wanted to make something cool that people would like, and just cool symbols that we hadn't seen before in other games.
I will have to have you on a specifically just symbol driven, because again, we'll just nerd out about specific silhouettes and stuff. So if you could, obviously with Raziel's symbol, there's an element of the bishop's kind of rook kind of symbol there. Was it all intuitively designed, or are we crazy for wanting to apply a little bit of symbolic kind of?
No, there are specific symbols to Raziel, right? Just the way that it was designed to be upside down when he puts it on his face and the giant tears come down, right? The way it fills him out, all of those things, the way that I designed the wings so that it wrapped around the symbol and actually became used the symbol as the beginning for the way his wings come up behind his back. Those were all intentional. Yeah, very deliberate.
Eternal mourning, like eternal kind of like, yeah, for sure, definitely. So
listen to Morrissey in high school, so I was
The Cure. Totally. I can dig it, man. Okay, so we are now. I'm gonna do a straw poll or something. I'm gonna just I want to see Daniel Cabuco, the 17-year-old goth. Like, do you have photos, man? Come on, buddy. Like,
That was
help
a
us
goth.
out.
I mean, I was an introvert, so basically I
Okay.
just listened to it and I really liked it, but I didn't wear
Same
it.
here.
So.
Same here. No, so totally get it. All right. Well, we are interestingly, weirdly matchy with what we chose. That's amazing.
Yeah.
We have a potential surprise guest. Sabrina is joining. Is that one of yours, Laura? Okay.
Yes.
Excellent.
Sabrina's coming now.
Excellent.
Oh, great.
Terrific. And so then I'm so glad that Daniel actually didn't know that there was that cool connection of you guys knowing each other before. That's kind of nice. And again, the clans must stay strong and stay together for sure. And so Sabrina,
meet you guys whenever I go to Italy. So
yes. And so io sono italiano. I actually first played Soul Reaver in Italian in
really?
Montefiore del Laso. That's right. Yeah, sono bilinguale, italiano. Yeah.
Okay, my mind is crashed. Oh no.
No, it's totally fine. And Sin, what's your region of that? Because I know that you're like Europe, right?
I'm half English and half Napolitan.
Napolitano. Allora,
strange mixed.
Okay.
Very strange mix.
So basically, here's what happens, Daniel. You go to Napoli, they throw you a feast there. You come to the middle of Italy, we'll throw you a feast over there. And then in Australia, you have to come over as well, another giant feast. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
One of the influences I had was when I visited Italy and I had just, visited Florence, and I was just so blown away. And because in America, you have to remember, our architecture is a couple of 100 years old. When you go to Europe and Italy, it's thousands of years old. There's so much history there, and that was something I wanted to capture because that sense of ruins are amazing because they're romantic. There's a sense of loss. There's a sense of history, a sense of architecture, and just to kind of capture that again because in the modern world we've been inundated with postmodernism here, which is a very different way of looking at architecture than the way that we had in the past, and we wanted to show like all of those things. So architecture was a huge influence on all of us for Soul Reaver, to try and show, Arabic for the vampires, to show an advanced kind of architecture, but that City of Lost Children vibe as well, and as well the idea of ruins for the vampires in Soul Reaver 2, where you had those sense of lost areas.
Particularly the Arabic. My fiance, she is half Bangla, half Egyptian, right? And so I've played Azar Midrashim for her, and then obviously that title and the idea of as you go further back, the more ancient, like that pure sense of something more ancient than ancientness is captured beautifully, and I would say also respectfully with that. It's just this subtle kind of Eastern kind of hint, which, believe me, you have. There are many. Again, I can just be that conduit now for the people who have launched their interest in Gothic architecture, in architecture itself, based off of the game, and then definitely in these different cultures. Obviously, nomenclature-wise, you're looking at Raziel and Sarafan, and the nomenclature etymologically. Legacy of Kain is a feast. Sophie, who is Sin's lore partner in lore, dives alongside with it. It's just so strange. It's me, Sophie, and Vati Video are these Australian lore people that we just dive in, and we love Yarnum, for example. I remember if it was either Sophie or Vati talking about Yarnum having the root word of yearning, to yearn for. Either if it's divinity, which is one of the things in the middle of Bloodborne, which was when it came out, buddy, Bloodborne, there was, I wouldn't say an uproar, but there was simultaneous joy and anger at from stuff either they do some Soul Reaver stuff, but it just felt like it just feels like it's time. It's what? Soul Reaver opened the door. It's generations, your parent opens the door for you when you're a kid, and then what the kid does when the parent gets a bit older, they open the door for the parent, and so I cannot wait, dude. It's gonna happen for sure. But Laura, Sabrina, we've just been having a party. Come on in. How are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
We certainly can.
Hi.
Well,
hello.
It's a pleasure to meet you. We have Sin here, we have Laura, we have Sabrina.
For me too. Hi.
Hi.
I heard you spoke Italian.
Yeah, for Italian. What do you prefer? No.
Well, I'll just say English for now.
Yeah, and I'll Sabrina.
I prefer.
Farò tutto l'editing. I will do all the editing. It'll be fantastic.
Oh, okay. that was strange, really. That was really strange.
Oh.
Yeah,
No,
I
tu ti
conferm.
ricordi quando eravamo in Italia? Soul Reaver. Do you remember? Like,
Cain
probably...
è idolatrato. I clan narrano leggende
Raziel.
Sorry.
Right. Danielle,
thing I just hate about Italian Reaver, it was the Raziel's name, because they
Raziel.
Oh,
Italian is Raziel, is terrible.
Oh, really?
Raziel.
Raziel. And Mobius say very imprinting name, Raziel, and we think, are you okay?
Okay. I was like disconnected for a bit. Sorry.
No.
I can see that. Yeah.
Some names, translating or whatever. But okay, so Sin, I know that you helped Sophie out with reining her in. You need to help me out, baby. You need to help me out. I'll just have a giant, big, like intellectual, philosophical party. I'm gonna end up like Daniel's gonna miss all his appointments. The vibes are so real. But I'm gonna jump into 3 uninterrupted questions. Is that okay, Daniel? Just to kind of give voice to the community. Okay, here we go. I would like to know how they settled on the final design of Raziel's brothers. What others' designs were considered? So I guess you can broaden that out to dimensionalize it more in terms of the 3-fingered design for the vampires. But I suppose he did mention the brothers specifically. So if you wanted to visually unify them, what did you specifically want to include for that?
Well, I think if you're talking about the brethren as their vampires or as their devolved monstrous boss selves, there's 2 different things there. So
you can pick either one.
The first one was a symbol of unity, right? So once Raziel was designed, we just brought the other bosses in there and kind of took their attributes and kind of hinted at what they would become, right? So we gave Terrell big ears, made him buff. Duma, we couldn't do that much with. We gave him the samurai cut. We gave Rahab the slight gilling on there and made him blue, made his eyes blue. But the idea for them was to unite them with the uniform and a kind of, they just don't care about being exposed or having different kinds of clothing than what, almost scandalous in the way that they were dressed. And once we got to the devolved part, it was really, we were working backwards, by the way, on the lieutenant's form from the boss forms. The boss forms were thought up first. Huge concept, sort of, just explosion of ideas, just trying different things. Melchiah was supposed to be an amalgam of different things. We wanted to try, different forms, but after a while you get kind of sick of humanoid forms. You want to try different things.
I can tell, especially with Melchiah. It's so interesting. Again, I have to mention it because we are recording this in a space in time. In the Elden Ring trailer, we see this creature with these like limbs everywhere, and obviously, I'm thinking now like Melchiah, this fused being. Ain't nothing new. Daniel Cabuco and crew did that. But in particular, I wanted to ask. Now, I just want to kind of accompanying that question is, I always interpreted, that monstrous, how the brothers devolve, and it is that they are showing their inner monstrousness on the outside, like the eons. It's almost like the bubble has burst, and now they're just showing that wretchedness on the outside. Is that kind of what the vibe was with that?
Exactly. Even for Cain, who thought himself a god, grew himself a crown of golden bone, and stuff like that. So the idea is that the curse that New Raptor could cast upon them was that whatever it is they manifest in themselves, they would become. Melchiah, they say he received the poorest part of his soul, but also he had he didn't think much of himself, and so he started to fall apart and then pull himself together again and all those kinds of things. But he hated his form, whereas the other brothers had different thoughts about themselves. Zephon thought he was perfect. Zephon thought he reached a level of predatory perfection, becoming his form, right? So he's part. And he wasn't all just one insect either. He was like, part spider, part praying mantis,
aphid aspect.
All different kinds of stuff. So we tried to mix things together, but make them who they were, right? Rahab was about adaptability, but he lost the ability to adapt to sunlight. He couldn't resist sunlight at all in any shape, way, or form. So it was like there's a sense of loss there. He gained something but lost something, and the frustration of that fact. Duma's frustration over being like the perfect warrior, but also being killed by humans and having to watch his own body there, not being able to go back to it simply because there's, he was impaled.
Mm-hmm.
And he's so frustrated. He didn't have material form. He can't pull those out. And he has to watch his own destroyed body as a trophy all those years, and how that messes with him. So
it wasn't just a physical manifestation thing. It was actually, again, the forces of, time and then the causality, like ending up in these perfectly poetically appropriate, fates for these characters.
And any good concept class should tell you this. There's an idea of the concept of the character, right? So usually it's words. And then you work from the words to the forms, and you'll try different things. So we go from general to specific. So you try a lot of different kinds of forms, and then you pull it down into something specific. And all credit to the artists who designed these things too. Is like they have to distill an idea into a form, which again relates back to that idea, and has to be able to do it in a way that's not overt, and it has that sense of design aesthetic to it, right? Like the cheapest thing you could do would be to have like a mean guy with like a chain that says mean on it, right? That would be so stupid. That wouldn't be it. But if you have a guy who has visual storytelling that shows that he did mean things to people, like each trophy is from, he steals from children or something like that.
Now I want to do a check now for Sin, who is also our they're almost like the first audience. You guys are co-hosts as well. Please jump in with questions as well. But Sin, did you have any notion of his corruption coming out in the form of the whole the horned crown, which is that simultaneous thing of like, it's almost like, again, like the devil, and he's that will. It's like Sauron, like that will to dominate has come out in that sort of form. Did that ever symbolically kind of realize for you, Sin?
Well, I think originally Soul Reaver started development as it's a project called Shifter that had, if I'm not mistaken, some more biblical incline to it. Perhaps. Yeah, that's it. So that stuff is always in the back of knowing this information, that stuff is kind of always in the back of your mind when you play Soul Reaver, and especially if you played it for a while, and then if you're into like cut content, maybe you're like, oh, I wonder if this is from Shifter, if this is something completely new. And I actually had a question about corruption. So we know that was in Legacy of Kain. After Ariel gets murdered, Napraptor goes mad, and that, I guess, madness transfers itself or spreads itself across all guardians. And even Kain mentioned that like he had this, I guess, affliction since he was born, so he could not possibly be a proper guardian of balance. That's why he should have, died for a new guardian to take his place. And I'm wondering, what exactly is this madness or affliction? What is it that makes those guardians incompetent in their job as guardians?
So yeah, it's a corruption of the mind that basically inhibits their bodies from being able to be in alignment with the pillar that they represent. And so as well, like, it permeates their being. For everything that they create will be tainted with the same thing. So Kain, as a vampire, all of his creations are damned. Every single thing he's going to create is damned. So with the corruption of the mind, which is why the devolution follows with the thinking that each of the brethren have. So eventually Raziel would have, if he hadn't had his wings ripped off and thrown into the abyss, he would have turned into something else with giant wings and probably really pompous and arrogant too. So it's a corruption of the mind and its effect upon the body. So when the mind is corrupted, the body cannot be the body follows the mind. So if the mind is corrupted, then that everything they do will fall into corruption. So the nature guardian will corrupt nature, the states guardian will corrupt the states. All of those things will follow because the mind is gone off the wrong way. So not aligned.
And I sort of have a follow-up question to that, because as you play all these games, Kain seems to be pretty with it. Like, he might eat a person here or there, but his thinking, his logic, him trying to sort of do something good, even though the means may not always necessarily be good, he seems to be always there. So, like, the concept of corruption, does it have to do anything with the concept of, like, pollution and Kigare that we often encounter in Dark Souls as well as Bloodborne?
That's a good point. I think that's a big part of it. Cain so the affliction of the mind isn't necessarily that you'll lose your mental acuity or you lose your ability to think. It's that the things that you create and eventually you are going to devolve into like, more base forms of desires and things like that. And so Cain was most resistant to it. He was afflicted in the womb. So he basically, came up with his arrogance, but that's about it. His arrogance was like his primary thing. But his creations were far more susceptible to it. So the idea is that as each of those children was, also with a piece of his soul inside of them and growing up, they basically began to devolve. They would evolve and then devolve, if that makes any sense. You reach a pinnacle and you'll fall down. So Cain would eventually devolve as well. My thought would be that it would take longer for him being a vampire, but it would happen. And so but also Cain, through sheer force of will, was keeping himself on a track. One thing that's important to know about Cain is just he's the strongest mind of just about anybody. And he basically, through sheer force of will, went through a library of possibilities. Like imagine reading every book in the library. You have the time to do it, but you have the mental acuity. Yeah. He took the mental willpower to do that, to go through every single possibility of his timeline, research the best chance he had for breaking through a damn timeline and actually, not have to sacrifice himself, destroy himself, or destroy the pillars. Yeah.
I just want to
have one last.
Go for it, Sin.
Yeah?
Go for it.
Okay,
Yep.
and I have sort of one last follow-up question to this idea of madness and stuff. So in Defiance, basically sacrificing, I guess, or imprisoning or whatever Raziel with the Soul Reaver, does that sort of quote unquote cure Cain?
Yeah, it was. If you watch the video again, the symbol of Cain's impurity that we did visually was the giant scar that he has across his stomach and chest from when he was first killed. That was something that I designed inside there when we were first designing Elder Cain, because we wanted to tie as much as possible between Elder Cain and the past Cain, right? So Vordor's earring and the slash across his chest were two big things. And that slash across his stomach became that symbol of his corruption. So when Raziel goes back into Cain and threw him into the blade, he purifies Cain. You see the scar disappears on his stomach. And so that basically shows that Cain is purified now as a guardian, and now new guardians can be born again. The idea is that balanced guardian would prune anytime a pillar falls to corruption, the balanced guardian's job is to prune it so that a new one can grow. But if everything is corrupt, then everything has to die, and then in that case, that's the masterstroke of the Hilden to destroy the pillars. And so Cain didn't fall for it. He didn't fall for the rhetoric and said, like, look, there's got to be some way I can fix this. And he went through every iteration of a man desperate, not for life, but for a future. And with that sense of desperation, read through an entire library of futures that could happen until he found the points of static where Raziel existed as both inside and outside the blade as a Soul Reaver.
I think Defiance was very well named because one of the core things for both Raziel and Cain is the notion of defying what is the natural order, what is expected of you, and again, a very relatable concept again in there's some Campbellian aspects to that there of not wanting to accept certain realities as being true. And it is a gigantic paean and cautionary tale to not allowing the natural course of things to take, the natural way of things to take course. And now
that's why we say defying the Tyrannous stars. That's why the opening dialogue says defy the Tyrannous stars, because that's about fate. That's about defying fate.
And here's the thing though, is we wouldn't have Legacy of Cain as it is, this amazing worthwhile story as it is, if there wasn't that first notion of actually I want a better deal than this, and exactly, and therein is the drama, and therein is the worthwhile story, and the timeless story, because we've always in certain situations we're placed in, there's a sense of inescapability, and again, suppose you throw it enough times that it falls on its edge, that is something that people I'm sure have used as platforms for like self-inquiry, and then broader discussions, a lot of, I'm sure for certain, a lot of theses theses have been written for particularly that theme of causality and escapability. And I know you say tangled wires, but with when you are going into this, time stuff, what's fortunate with that is, even though Amy did have a sequence, there is, again, the wires. It's not like they're, metaphysical wires that are quantum entangled. It's like, no, they're physical wires, and if you actually went there and passed them out, my preference would definitely be for you and her to absolutely just lead the project. I just want to see that press release. I really do. Okay,
well,
so
whenever we get together, I take photographs of us together, but I'm really loath to print them or put them on Facebook, because everyone's just gonna start speculating, right? I'm just having dinner. I'm just having a sandwich or something. Just talking.
Well, we're gonna send some specifically, located people to take photos of you guys. You guys just choose the place. I'll organize it. And what we do is we just need to, at some point, people have to, sometimes the algorithm can be a friend. For me, sometimes it's worked against me when I've had to push out of certain boxes that it tries to put me in. But when the internet runs with something, it's very hard to stop. Like we saw that with Sonic, like there was no, like redesign. Like the internet's power, which is going to be exemplified in your Patreon and in what we'll be doing for you and Amy with Legacy of Kain podcast, is we will literally collectively manifest this thing as it absolutely one-for-one needs to be. Not a compromised, not a compromised version of it, like the most self-true, what Corey did with God of War. It's going to be that level of authenticity and out of reverence, but also growing it from that point of being this pillar, to use a phrase from Legacy of Kain, that term, that pillar of the artistic, of the interactive medium as art, like. Sure. And it's
fandom can bring things back. Fandom can make a lot of things happen, and that's could be the way we do this, because obviously from the top down, there are a lot of people who don't understand it and are trying to make something happen and would probably mess it up if they tried to do it. So if it might have to come from a different location and a different way of manifesting, because I don't think, and this refers back to the earlier question, I don't think you'd want to have it where somebody just comes in and just tries to make it without fully understanding what is getting into it. I mean, it's a box of wires, but it's not that hard to understand.
Thank you.
I get it, but I'm knee deep in it. But
I mean, you could write this Bible that you're talking about. Guillermo del Toro, before he starts anything, he writes the damn thing. He writes it all, plans it all out, and everything. As in 3 of those questions, you just picked right up on it, because right now you may have one world in our world, but you are the other leg, the other Cabuco leg is in Nosgoth right now. And that's why you're this very valuable intermediary for sure. I have to again be this conduit for folks, so it's like. Ekriam says, I'd be curious to know how Daniel would have envisioned the art style evolving with today's technical and artistic progress, both in general and personal. Would he have leaned heavier into the darker, gothic, realistic art direction, or would he have kept it more stylized? So I then raised the idea of the 3 fingers, if that was something that you would go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a hybrid between the two. We try to find that happy medium between the design and art, and trying to figure out like what the style might look like. If we were to start like right now, I would probably try to explore different types of looks, ranging from realistic to something like Arcane just came out from Riot. That's a beautiful 2D/3D design that's just amazing looking. And something like that might be really interesting because it gives you more lateral ability to change things and create things that's more illustrative. But at the same time, I've seen some amazing ZBrush art for Raziel. Fan art like this behind me. I didn't do this. This is fan art. I love it so much.
Beautiful.
But seeing stuff like that makes me think, wow, I'd love to see this. And I've seen it on Unreal. I've seen someone create it in Unreal. I had my critique of it, of course, because I'm knee deep in this stuff. I've been working at PlayStation for years. I've seen the realism and what we can do with this stuff. But I want to push technologies too. I want to push, like, Spectral was awesome, but there are things we can do nowadays that can kind of hybridize Spectral. I mean, I want to really try some different technologies that are really going to push animated look and feel that's going to happen that just you wouldn't expect. Sort of the way, especially with the PlayStation 5's ability to load so quickly. there are things we can do now that are just incredible. Like Ratchet and Clank just came out, and it's fantastic what they can do with like pulling those areas in there, and just being able to have localized disturbances of reality where you can change things around on the fly. Would be my idea.
And then I will just support that peripherally and say, look, we are in a post God of War 2018 world, a post Death Stranding world. I spoke with Tommy L. Jenkins, who, when he breaks, I mean, again, spoilers 3, 2, 1. It's out of context. It's not really, but he in full like from the nose, from the eyes, just like tears kind of thing. Which I want to say this of Legacy of Kain is Michael Bell and Simon Templeman. They carried that with the level of polygonal limitations that they had, but we still have them both, and to have them come back would be great. But whoever is chosen, to see the full range of of this level of kind of sophisticated, existential, poetic, beautiful, heartbreaking dialogue delivered with that sense of emotionality on the face, I think that would be wonderful.
I work at Death Stranding as well. I did a bunch of facial scanning with that stuff too. But
nice.
We helped build the faces at PlayStation.
Oh, wonderful!
But to say, all credit goes to Michael and Simon, because they played it with absolute belief that we could pull off this incredible technology. Yes. The performances were never tongue in cheek. They were never halfway thought. They played with every bit of belief that they were doing something as good as an animation, or as a play, or as a TV show or a movie, and that kind of gave us such a grounding to be able to build this game.
And I want to say theatricality too. So we watched Interview with the Vampire. For some reason, there are certain shots of, especially, again, spoilers, 3, 2, 1, Interview with the Vampire, when he is emaciated and it's like sunken face. I just see, I don't know if there was some unconscious Venn diagramming. Was there a bit of Tom Cruise in just the visual of just that, even just that nose, that aquiline kind of look?
Oh, for Raziel? Oh yeah. I mean, look, there's a lot of things. There was a little bit of David Bowie, a little bit of Tom Cruise, a little bit of like a lot of different actors in there. But also the primary thought was loss, beauty. Vampires are eternally beautiful, and to take that away and what that meant to someone who was very vain, to lose that was another thing to And Gothic themes are all about loss. It's all about the loss of beauty, the loss of paradise, the loss of beauty, your time where you're just absolutely gorgeous, and then going into age and what that means. But for Raziel to have lost that, and even for Lestat to have lost that, is just devastating. But the idea that with immortality you've got the ability to change that. You're, on the one hand, you're unchanging, but when you lose it, you mourn it. So what do you want? How do people deal with that?
Speaking of unchanging things changing suddenly, which is one of the dramas of the vampire fantasy and the vampire analogy or metaphor, is that eternity. We say this thing, I've been waiting in line for Subway for an eternity. It's like, no, for some vampires, like that's actually real or whatever. But for me, when I saw, again, it's just because it's so fresh in my mind, the statue that moves in Interview with the Vampire. The opening screen of Soul Reaver is so iconic. For many people.
Thanks. Yeah.
Was there a little bit of that cross pollination of like, just because as you're the moving statues?
I don't know if I was exactly that, but there were a lot of things that influenced that, because I when we were making the opening screen, I just wanted to make something different.
Yeah.
Something that actually had symbolism, which you never ever see in an opening user interface, and B, that had that would take me by surprise. And living statues was something that I loved. I loved the idea of it. You still see it in like the Weeping Angels in Doctor Who for that. But,
I wouldn't even dare to interrupt if I didn't have what I wanted to impart here, because otherwise it'll just leave my mind, buddy. In theme, it is absolutely. It was unconsciously maybe in theme with the idea of the permanent changing, with the unmoving, unshifting. Of stone, like that texture of stone, and then that shifting suddenly, and like how abnormal that is, how against nature that is, and yet that's happening. And so just contained That's not some over intellectualization. It's just it's right there to be seen at the start of this of the game. It's like a little mini thesis statement about what this game is saying about.
That's exactly it. That's
know.
exactly it. That was when we were designing. We'd already built most of the game when we got to the UI. We were out of time, but I wanted to put that in there because it was our statement that this is different.
There you
this
go.
was going to be something different as an experience. It was symbolic of so many things, not just the brethren that were being symbolized there, but the fact that this game was different. It wasn't going to be like other PlayStation games. It wasn't going to be like other game experiences you had. It was going to be something that was art, that was going to like take you by surprise, that was going to give you something that you didn't expect. And that was another symbology that's layered on top of that. And I fought hard for that. I had to fight really hard to get that in the game. I mean, I had to slide it in post alpha, right before beta. Basically.
Wow, folks. Okay, like the gratitude is so real, man, for that, because it wouldn't be the same without that element. I know what Amy brought. She's explained what she brought, but I really would love for this to just be this. Not that you don't seem like you're very, and I can see body language wise you're about the story, you're about the world. Like I see that the accolades and some of that, like I do the same. It's like when it just trickles off because it's like, well, that's wonderful of you to say, but what can this add to? And again, it's very important for me though, as like someone, I make art, I do storytelling with the contiments and stuff, that when I am in the middle of, and there's a lot of questions about what you're doing now, because people like they're not just looking in the past, they want to see more of you. They are, and in fact I'll put all those questions together and just like as we tail off the end of the show, actually what is in progress for you creatively that you've got going, man?
Yeah, so the Patreon is definitely a big thing right now. I'm trying to partner with other 3D artists and designers to build things that we can actually 3D print and put out there. Trying to work with like on things like pins and symbologies. Like one thing I want to do is build clan pins and things like that, and set those up. And
I'm there, buddy. I'm there.
Also have an engagement with the fans, because really just talk about what people want and what do people want to see. And we're going to see more of the re-illustrated versions of the clan bosses, which I just did Rahab on the left. And the thing is that I want to engage with the fans on the highest level I can. I want to give back, because like people have been so great about just being loyal and being like really vocal, and I love that. And which is hard because I know some people are really introverted, which is fine. I'm the same way.
I'm the same too, but I also have to push myself to make sure that like amazing, worthwhile voices like yours, creatively, everyone on the show gets heard and signal boosted. So what I'm going to say now is to Games Radar, to Dual Shockers, to all the people who blew up the God of War podcast, putting that in headlines, chuck this guy in some headlines, please, with this idea of Daniel Cabuco, doing this thing of Sanctuary of Cain, doing a gauge of the audience. Like we hear buzz about it. It was actually on IGN recently. We had Destin Legary. He brought out his Soul Reaver. He was so excited. He can't wait. So it's very much time for that, talking about causality. There's the cause, and I also, it's so weird. I also subconsciously threw on Matrix Reloaded, which is all about causality. It's like we have the cause, and now we must have the effect, which is that a gigantic concerted media effort, community effort, and then creator effort goes towards continuing this. Because I'm obviously Sin. I think I speak on behalf of you and Sabrina, Laura. We cannot wait for the Daniel Cabuco authored, leather-bound Sanctuary of Cain. You put everything, every damn thought you've ever had. We're gonna buy the collector's edition, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And at the same time, I want to see what the fans create too. Like what Laura and Sabrina are making is amazing. I want to see more of that. What Sin has, and all those things. It's like I'm there for it. I am there for it because it inspires me too, and just to have the ability to, consume as well as create, and to kind of create that dialogue as well. Okay. All I want to do. It's a fun world. It was an amazing time, like the Wild West of gaming, where you could actually put a little bit of yourself into a game and actually got in there. And,
Daniel, I have something for you right now, and I want everyone, because I like to end things on a hype note, and I just want to get your riff on this. Press release opens, trailer, whatever, walks out on stage, Daniel and Anne, whatever, something like that. Amy. The story set 10 years before the start of Soul Reaver. Like this, like we actually get to play as, you know, like who knows, Raziel, exactly, with like verdant, beautiful, you know, again, I'll just use it for the nth time, because again, when I'm watching it, I'm putting a Legacy of Kain filter. I'm like, this could work. There's even a jump platform. Like there's elements that in this and I'm talking massive open world, Elden Ringian Nosgoth, flying around, upgrade your wings. You can have, like, again, we had the Pathless recently. Did you play the Pathless by any chance?
No, I haven't.
Oh yeah, so temples, right? Approach them in any order. Kain of the Wild, Legacy of the Breath. Of the
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
put it out there in the universe, brother. It's all good.
I will do it for you. And again, what is that? That glider? It's like gliding with the wings, baby. Like,
yeah,
so get hype and collectively manifest it with us for sure. So and I'm glad that see, as you said, that was I threw it to you. I'm glad you jumped in and was like, it has to happen. So Nosgoth prequel, let's do it. Prequel, baby, and then go from there, you know, and then figure out the time stuff later. In fact, prequel trilogy, so that you never have to figure out the time stuff.
Well, thank you, Albert. I really appreciate you having me.
No worries. It's been an absolute pleasure. I will just bring in Sabrina just to kind of, because she's just been in there. Did you have anything?
Sorry, guys.
That's okay.
Sorry.
No. È commossa, which in Italian means she's too moved to speak. She's too overwhelmed. Yeah. There you go. No worries at all. Well, I'm actually glad that we did have, like, actually, and I was vibing it out, and I'm so glad, Sin, for your questions. Did you have something, Laura? Did you want to ask, or are you good? You're doing your thing? Because I saw the hand going up, but that's okay. I love how Laura's just giving us that.
I say a little
yeah,
about Sabrina. She have a little moment of cryness. I don't know.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
No.
So it's okay.
I agree with the idea of Nosgoth at the dawn of the Empire. I just want to know how the song were made, how they conquest Nosgoth, the words. I really want to see.
Yeah, that would be great. That'd be fun. You know, just having each of them with their specialities and how they use those things. You know.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Be a lot of fun.
Folks, it has been
a dream.
It's a dream, but it's not gonna be a dream forever. It's gonna be real.
We can only make a comic about this argument.
Okay. Oh, okay. We are now. I'm announcing it on their behalf. We have Soul Healer are gonna do a full treatment, like actual like scriptment of this idea, open world. Because actually, I want to say this: Commonwealth Realm. They do these things in advance of the Breath of the Wild 2 stuff, where they actually get amazing concept artists. They put it all together. They essentially do the game developers' work for them. And just so, look, hey, floating platforms, da-da-da-da-da. So I'll signal boost that for you guys. Daniel, you, again, no smoke blowing, are the most generous person in the creator sphere of things to have come on the show with your insights, with your wisdom, with your anecdotes, with your very enlightening overall commentary on this amazingly worthwhile pillar of the interactive art form. And I could not be more grateful. You've just been the most gracious guest. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure. We can do it again.
Let's do it again, for sure. If anyone else didn't have anything else, Sin, anything for Dan?
More box puzzles.
More box puzzles.
Well,
Title of the episode. Nah, it's all good. All right. Well, folks, I usually do a post show, but how about we just do a big old energetic group hug and have an amazing day, everyone. Thank you, Daniel. You're so kind. I'll speak to you again very soon.
Thank you guys for everything. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.